I'll just wait. Now we're ready. I'll move us out of closed session. All in favor? Opposed?
Oh, I forgot to vote, sorry.
All in favor? Motion is carried. There's a motion arising from closed session. Councillor Larson, sorry, I was reading the motion. Councillor Larson?
That's okay, I know what that's like. I'll move that council authorize the REIV and Chief Administrative Officer to sign the agreement presented to council dated August 12, 2022 between Lehigh County and Shaw Cable Systems GP to install broadband infrastructure as designed in Schedule B with funding of the project to be placed in future operational budgets not to exceed a total of $2,625,000 in 2023 and 2024.
Motion on the floor. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Question to administration about communicating details of that. What can be communicated?
We do have some communication already.
Oh, perfect.
And we'll forward that on.
Okay, wonderful. We will move on to 2.48. Actually, would you like to go back to the utility bylaw? I noticed Joel is back. Or you tell me when.
We could for sure. There's also, he's here for another reason as well. So what if council's okay, we can just go back to the bylaw ratings for the utility rates and just finish that one off. I think it was council consensus. So.
Yeah, I think we had said that we would revisit that after the closed session with
right.
Shaw. So if everybody's comfortable, we will go back to agenda item 2.12. And administration has circulated an updated RFD with the updated rates with the amendment to deputy that we approved for first reading with the 15% increase under Deputy Reeve Clausen's motion. So council's wishes.
Move second reading.
Councillor Kester has moved second reading. Any questions or discussion?
Do we need to just put as amended as well?
No, it was 15%.
I think now it will just be as present, like as it was approved in first reading.
Just going by what's written.
Yeah, that's fine.
Should it say as amended?
You can just leave it off. I think it's pretty clear. It's in there. Okay.
Okay, good question.
As long as we're clear.
Yep. Any other questions or discussion? So for clarity, it would be with what has just been distributed by administration with the 15% increase. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll move that council grant permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2022-20.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? No? Yeah, there was 3 people, so you bet. Motion was carried unanimously. Council's wishes?
I'll move that council move third reading of bylaw 2022-20.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Kester?
One more comment. We had asked staff to bring some information back for the committee of the whole. And I noticed on here, it didn't, just the bell come on, bulk water. Thinking I would like to know how much bulk water we sell and where, and what do the neighboring surrounding communities charge for bulk water. I don't want to be in competition with anybody, and I don't want.
Do you want to put a motion on, Councillor Custer?
It needs a motion, yeah. I think we just asked for that for information. Motion? It doesn't matter. I mean, if you want
It's
to
easy to track and just make
make a
sure.
motion, then. Yeah.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
Can I ask that if there's a press release on this soon, just send it to me so I can send it out to people in Muirfield. They'd love to see that.
On the utilities?
Just the utility rates. I know people have been waiting for this for a long time. If there's something, just send me a link or whatever and I'll post it.
Just post it in Muirfield.
And then, just as a follow-up as well to the utility rate discussion, I'd like to put a motion on the floor asking administration to work with the Wheatland Regional Corporation representatives just to sort of assist with looking for efficiencies to bring down the water rate to the most cost-effective rate possible. Just if there can be administrative support to the board representatives. And as well, I think it goes without saying, but as well just for us to look for efficiencies within our own systems so that we're making sure that we're sort of minimizing costs as much as possible. So both internally and externally.
Yes.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to 2.48, 2022 property tax statistics. Oh, sorry. I believe we passed that. Yeah.
The CVIP one.
2.49 CVIP.
Good afternoon again, Joel from Finance. So the Commercial Vehicle Inspection Program is a standard program that we undertake, and we provide that service for the Strathmore Handy Bus in their vehicles. And the practice of writing off the biannual billing for those inspection fees has been done in prior years. It's not, nothing new. The current year operating budget includes an allowance for that. And as a reminder, it's a non-cash in-kind contribution because it's our own staff performing those services. And so this is just simply a request to continue on with that and in writing off the first 6 months what we would be billing them otherwise for this year.
Council's wishes?
I'll move that council direct administration to write off the commercial vehicle inspection program invoice for January to June 2022 in the amount of $5,250 for Strathmore Handy Bus and provide this service as in kind.
Councillor Laprise has moved. Any questions or discussion?
Just a comment, I'm really glad this more accurately reflects the costs of this because I don't think the county should be in business with private industry to provide this service. This is for 6 units twice a year through the inspection process. So, plus repairs.
Yeah, and I think it is good to just document too, like the contribution, like the true value of the contribution, right?
Before it was substantially cheaper than this.
Oh,
Donation showed that it was like really cheap. And being that I go through it professionally and pay for it, I know what the costs and it's just more accurate. It reflects it better for sure.
so the county was doing it, but not charging for the full,
Yeah.
like not charging.
not
but
acknowledging the
providing
amount.
it as an
Yeah.
in-kind
Yeah.
and the full amount
Yeah.
of what it was worth. Oh, I see. Yes, no, that's fair to do. That's for sure.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.410.
Good afternoon, Council. Brian from Administration. So just on page 186 of your agenda package is just an RFD for annual contributions for not-for-profits. So there's kind of 3 items here that Council just needs to be aware of. So Resolution 2 actually was a straw poll by Council over the summer. And this was just a non-cash donation to the Strathmore and District Ag Society. And that was for a water truck to for the Strathmore Stampede. So majority of council did approve that one via email. And then the first resolution is actually something that is actually a cash donation. And these are two donations that previous councils have made on an annual basis to both of these societies. So the Strathmore Handy Bus Association for $10,000. That's been kind of a contribution over a number of years. And then the next one is to the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society. So both those amounts have stayed consistent over the last number of years. And I just had administration look into the last dates that they did present. So the Handy Bus last presented to the council on February 16th, 2021. And the Strathmore and Wheatland Christmas Hamper Society last presented to council on September 21st, 2021. So just kind of going through our budget this year, our budget to actuals, we noted that none of those donations have been made yet this year. And kind of a good practice that administration and council have got into is that we always get council to approve the donations to external organizations. That is something definitely at council's discretion. There is an amount in the budget that council does approve on an annual basis. And so we did include it for council's consideration as well on page 189. And if there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
For the resolution one, I have to recuse myself because I have a family member that works for the Handy Bus. So for that resolution, I will leave the room. Thanks.
I would like to speak in support of the Handy Bus, so I don't know if you...
Pardon?
So I'm sitting on the Handy Bus as just for my own personal interest or whatever. And so I just wanted to say for them, there was a change in leadership starting late last year, and they had to work hard to get their financial business in order following the change in leadership there. So they have just completed their audit and finalized a budget for this year and are working on the budget for next year just because of the uncertainty that was going on there. So now they're back on track. They're working to understand the SIP grant process for capital projects for replacing some vehicles. They're going to try to maybe hire somebody to look at their bylaws and policies because they are just too onerous. It's just too much. So they're trying to simplify that. I think that the operations will be much more transparent going forward. And I hope that County Council might consider putting them back on the organizational chart in the future. I think it's very worthwhile. And I think, so this $10,000 is a good investment from the county's perspective, I would say.
Any other questions?
So along these lines, I also was going to raise, but I will, I've recently received a request for a memorandum of understanding from the Chamber of Commerce. So I'd like to put forward a notice of motion for the September 6th regular meeting. So I don't know if I should do that right now or...
If you wouldn't mind if you wait just till Deputy Ruth Clausen rejoins us.
Pardon me after that.
No, that's okay. If we want to just address the first motion first, and then we can have Deputy Ruth Clausen rejoin us. Question to administration, should we break that into two motions if Deputy Ruth Clausen is just recusing on the one?
We probably should, to be honest.
Okay.
I kind of just forgot that he had a family member working for that board.
So perhaps just a motion regarding just the Strathmore Handy Bus, and then we can address the...
So I'll move that council approve its annual cash contribution to the Strathmore Handy Bus in the amount of $10,000, with funding coming from the approved 2022 operating budget.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Council's wishes regarding the Christmas Hamper Society donation.
I'll move that the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society be granted the donation of $3,300 with funding come from the approved 2022 operating budget.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
Just to note, Resolution 2 on the package on page 186 should include the Strathmore and District Agricultural Society. Just a typo on that one.
Perfect.
I'll move the council approve in-kind donation of $1,200 for the value of a water truck donated to the Strathmore and District Agricultural Society for the Strathmore Stampede event, with funding to come from the approved 2022 operating budget.
Questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor LaPriche, you got a notice of motion?
Yeah. So I received a request for a memorandum of understanding from Strathmore and Wheatland Chamber of Commerce. So I would like to put forward a notice of motion for the September 6, 2022 regular council meeting. That council authorize the Reeve and Chief Administrative Officer to sign the memorandum of understanding for annual financial contributions to the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce for $1,750 annually. So this follows from, as I had reported before, the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce entered into an MOU with the town of Strathmore. That value is $10,000. And so in preparing this ask, we looked at the total number of members from Wheatland County compared to their total number, and it was 17%. And so we thought a 17% of $10,000 would be a fair contribution from Wheatland County. And with the understanding that the money would go towards events that benefit Wheatland County businesses, so the BEAs and the trade show. So that's the intention, to help offset some of the costs of those events.
Question to administration. We don't need to vote on a notice of motion. We'll just anticipate that at our next meeting. Thank you for giving us that heads up. We appreciate it. We will move on to 11.
Hello, Joel again from administration. I'll be presenting the unaudited financial statements for the second quarter of 2022. And I'll just summarize some of the key findings here for you. So for the unaudited consolidated statement of operations as of June 30th, there's a couple of significant variances just to note and explain here. One would be the net property taxes that you can see there. We're currently, our actuals are $5 million over budget, and the reason for that is we still have $5 million in school taxation that is to be remitted in the third and fourth quarters. So by the end of the year, we'll effectively be right on budget in terms of the net property tax that's received by the county. The second line there would be the user fees and sale of goods. That one is over budget, or we've received more revenue than budgeted, and that's driven by the sale of the Muirfield lots. And so you will also notice that on the third last expense line, I believe it's under the subdivision land and development, we're over in expense there, and that just offsets, that's our recognizing the expense of the sale of those lands. So they effectively go together to net to around zero from an operating perspective. And then the other kind of Muirfield related item for that would be the transfers to reserves that you see on the bottom there, where we have, as we receive the cash from those sales, they go directly to the Muirfield reserve as per our policy. So that's why we have a little bit of quite a bit of variance relative to our budget for transfers to reserves. go down to our unaudited consolidated statement of financial position, we have comparatives to the same period, June 30th of 2021 to 22. There aren't a lot of overall substantial changes. If we look at our net financial assets, they're relatively constant. Again, the Muirfield item that you can see being driven from here to the financial statements of operations is the drop in the inventory held for resale. That's because we've had quite a bit of activity for the lot sales in that second quarter of this year. So you can see it going from 8 million down to the 3.1 million. Those are kind of the summary of the large items in this financial statement. We're available for any questions.
Any questions? If not, a motion to accept the update as information.
Also move.
Councillor Beggar has moved. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 2.412.
Good afternoon. I will be presenting 3 development permit applications that are within the Lakes of Muirfield, so they need to go to council for approval. The first one is DP 2022-151. And if we go to the location plan on page 200, we can see it's along Muirfield Boulevard within the Lakes of Muirfield. On the same page, we have our circulation map. It was circulated to adjacent landowners +1 of the parcel, and it is for variances for a dwelling and a wood landscape feature that are built on or over a utility right-of-way. So with our circulation, we received comments back from the Homeowners Association who said that they are okay with all the variances, and if the utility work needs to be done, it would be at the owner's cost to move any and all buildings and landscaping to make it possible, and the setbacks are from the lot lines are appropriate, just not from the utility right-of-way. In our internal file review, the manager of technical services said that the utility right-of-way was transferred to the golf course back in May, and it is for their irrigation system. On page 201, you can see the real property report, which was submitted for a compliance review, and it identified that the attached garage was located 6.09 meters from the front property line rather than 6.10, so just a very small variance required for that one. And then on the side, so this green dotted line is the utility right-of-way boundary, and the garage is encroaching over that boundary by 0.53 meters, and the eaves are encroaching in 3 locations as well. The RPR did identify this shed that's on the rear of the property that also was encroaching into the utility right-of-way, but the applicant has agreed to move the shed 1 meter to the east, and they have resided the shed so that it will comply with the architectural controls as well. A landscape border runs along the side of the garage and stairs down alongside the house, and that is encroaching into the utility right-of-way in 3 locations. So the development permit for the dwelling was issued in 2009 with a condition that stated no permanent development shall occur over or on any utility right-of-way or easement. And the site plan did show that the eaves would be encroaching, however the permit was issued. And the applicant purchased the property in 2015 with the dwelling and the shed already on site, but they did add the landscape border. So, as I mentioned, the utility right-of-way belongs to the golf course as part of the irrigation system, and they have advised that they most likely will never need to use the right-of-way. They haven't to this point. However, they are open to entering into an encroachment agreement with the applicant, which would be registered on title. So if the property sells, the next owner would be aware of the encroachment agreement. So on pages 203 and 204, we have some photos. We have the garage and the landscape feature found on page 203. And 204, you can see the steps. And then on page 205, we have the shed, which is going to be moved 1 meter to the east, and it has been recited. And the dwelling, just with the 1 centimeter variance required for the front. So some considerations: there was no concerns raised from the surrounding landowners or the internal circulation. The HOA is in favor of the variances. The applicant has agreed to move the shed, and the permit is conditional upon the applicant and owner of the utility right-of-way entering into an agreement which will be caveated on title. So on page 195, we have staff's recommendation, which is, so the, whoops, that's not it, 195. So staff are recommending that council approve the variances with the permit to be issued once the conditions have been met, which include the provision that the encroachment agreement has been executed and submitted to land titles for registration. And council has their standard 3 options to consider on page 197. And that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have questions.
Any questions?
I'll make the motion that council approve DP 2022-151 for variances for a dwelling and wood landscaping border subject to the conditions.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
This application is DP 2022-156. It is for a community outdoor rink within the Lakes of Muirfield. The location plan is found on page 212. It is right adjacent to Range Road 264 on the lot with the Mercantile Building. Circulation map is on the same page, 212, and we circulated to the entire community and layout as well. We did not receive any response. Oh, actually, we did receive one response in support, which I believe was included in the agenda package. Did you want that one read? It was in the agenda.
Yeah, I think there was one that was provided this morning. Correct. Would administration recommend it be read into the record?
Madam Reeve and Council, we typically do read after the fact or the supplemental into the record, so it would be at the discretion of council to have that done.
That would be great, thank you.
Good morning. I am writing to support the application to extend the temporary permit to allow time to find a suitable permanent location for the outdoor rink. The Lakes of Muirfield absolutely needs a rink and needs to be given the go-ahead to maintain where it is before the cold weather hits. The rink couldn't even be used last year because it was so late in the season when it was flooded. I would like to see a decision made on a permanent location so that a floor could be poured. It would drastically cut down on maintenance, improve the surface to skate on, and require less water for flooding. And please let me know if there are any questions. So there was no concerns from the internal circulation, and the Lakes of Muirfield Homeowners Association said that we have no issues with the development permit as described. So on page 213, we can see the site plan, and it's proposed to be on the same site as it was. In 2020, the permit was issued for a 2-year term for the community recreation facility on the 5.2-acre parcel shared with the Mercantile Building. And the rink shares a parking area with the Mercantile as well, accessed via Muirfield Boulevard. The county has been working with Lakes and Muirfield Homeowners Association to find a suitable permanent location, but has been able to do so within the 2-year timeframe specified. As per the previous development permit condition, a volunteer agreement was executed identifying the parties responsible for the itemized costs and services attributed to the project. So this application has been made to extend the temporary permit to allow time to find a suitable permanent location. On pages 214 and 215, we have some photos and some considerations. The proposed application aligns with the MDP and LUB for recreational development. The outdoor recreational opportunities has been identified as a priority in the Open Space, Recreation and Culture Master Plan. The proposed recreation facility fits within the context of the area, which is primarily residential. And the proposal is the result of a collaborative effort with the HOA and Wheatland County. So on page 207, we have staff's recommendation, which is to approve the recreation facility for a further 2-year term, which would expire August 16, 2024. And on page 209, we have the 3 standard recommendations or options for council to consider. And that's everything. Thank you.
Councillor Larson.
So just a couple of questions on this. Not to say it isn't a good idea, but just looking at the boards and the pictures and stuff, I'm not sure that they're sound. I mean, you can't tell by a picture. I guess my question is, do they meet the criteria for boards for an outdoor rink? And if not, who's liable for it? That's my only question. I don't want us approving something and then a kid gets hurt because they either go through or over the boards because they're not up to current specs. I don't want that to come back to the county. So if you can clarify that for me, that would be super.
I'm going to ask Dave Rhymes to come and speak to those questions. Thanks.
Thanks.
Through the chair, staff inspects them to make sure they're safe, and any deficiencies are provided to the HOA to address them before we open the rink or have any flooding or anything like that happen with the facility.
Staff's going to make sure it's safe, or they have to make sure?
Staff does that check to make sure to cover the liability because it is on county land.
Right.
So to cover our liability, staff does do that check.
Okay, and you'll make sure the boards are the right height and they've got their, okay, good enough. That was my only question.
Any other questions?
I'll move that council approve DP 2022-156 for community recreation facilities, subject to the following conditions 1 through 7.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll move to 2.414.
This application is DP 2022-157. The location plan is found on page 221 of the agenda package. It is located within the Lakes of Muirfield along Muirfield Crescent. On the same page, we have the circulation area, which was adjacent landowners +1. The application is for variances for a dwelling and a shed. So our circulation was performed, as I said, to adjacent landowners +1. We didn't receive any response from adjacent landowners. Our fire services for our internal circulation had no concerns with the shed, as there is no immediate risk to life safety. And Park Enterprises was circulated regarding the side yard setback for the dwelling being less than a typical setback, being 1.18 meters. And they said, because these homes are sprinklered, I'm fine with the reduced side yard setback for the dwelling. The Muirfield Homeowners Association provided comments. They are in agreement with the variances on the house, but they are not in favor of the variances for the shed. They believe it must be moved accordingly to satisfy setbacks and painted to match the house to fall in line with the architectural controls. And so on page 222, 220, Sure, yeah, we have the RPR, so you can see the shed being 0.34 meters from the side and 0.29 meters from the rear yard. And then the side yard is 1.18 meters and 6.05 from the front yard setback. So this was a compliance review that identified all of these setback issues. So we have a few photos on pages 223 and 224 of the dwelling in relation to the front yard on page 223 and to the side yard on 224. And there we have the shed on page 225. Some considerations: there was no concerns raised from the surrounding landowners for either of the buildings. There was no concerns raised from the internal circulation for either of the buildings. The HOA is in favor of the variance for the dwelling, but not the shed. The land use bylaw requires architectural approval as part of the application submission, which was not received. A permit could be issued for the shed if it was moved to meet the setbacks and the architectural approval was submitted with the DP application. So our recommendation, which is on page 216, is a dual recommendation on this one. So we have two. That council approve DP 2022-157 for variances for the dwelling, subject to the conditions as noted. And then for the shed, we've recommended refusal, that council refuse DP 2022-157 for the two variances for the existing shed for the reason given, which was that the architectural control review results were not submitted with the DP as the land use bylaw requires. So council has the standard three options found on page 218, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Council's wishes?
Would this all be one motion then, or do we need two separate ones?
Probably two
One
separate.
One says approve DP and one says refuse DP. Like there's no point, so like I don't understand how to.
It's probably easiest to do two for clarity, if that's
I would think
what
two
council
would be
wishes to
more
do.
clear, yes.
Okay. I'll make the motion that council approve DP 2022-157 for variances for a dwelling, subject to the following conditions 1 through 4.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Council's wishes regarding the shed?
I'll make the motion that council refuse development DP 2022-157 for variances for the existing shed for the following reasons. Architectural control reviews results were not submitted with the development permit application, indicating that the shed has been through the review process as per section 7.6.1 of the land use bylaw.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 2.415.
Can we take a 2-minute?
Sure. 2-minute break.
You have been muted. To unmute yourself, press the star key twice.
How can you not get?
We'll call the meeting back to order. We'll move
Mute
to
off.
2.415.
Good afternoon, Council. Dave from Administration. Just presenting an update on the Eagle Lake Resort lease update. During the March 1st, 2020 meeting, Council made a resolution to ask administration to negotiate a new lease with a various amount of conditions. I provided a timeline kind of roughly of the actions that took place following that motion. I guess the ones to note is June 20th, we had an in-person meeting with the operator to discuss the lease clauses. And then on June 26th, the operator provided us that the amendments that were offered were not workable. Shortly after that, the operator did provide a letter effective September 30th that she was going to relinquish this to the lease. So I've provided some other more further information in the report as well. A briefing note. I'm kind of just outlining a bit of about Eagle Lake campground and some of the options that are available to council if we wanted to discuss those now or put it off to a committee of the whole meeting in October. But that information is there as well. I have also scheduled for September 30th for us to secure the property, as well as on October 3rd, staff is going to do an inspection of the property as well. So that's kind of been scheduled for those dates as well, just for an update. So I can answer any questions.
Any questions?
So what about the mobile home that's there? We wouldn't be able to inspect it until then, and by then she's gone. I don't know, it doesn't look that nice, but I don't know the benefit of having it, keeping it. If she's indicated it's up to us if we want to keep it or not.
The request from her was if the county wanted to purchase it. It is hers, and the lease is that she should remove it. So we're going, unless council directs us that we want to purchase it, I think we'll go on the thing that please remove it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Great.
It looks like a liability, not an asset.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, I think maybe we made the right decision not to extend the lease.
Sorry.
Just a guess, but.
Any other questions or comments?
So we're going to bring this forward to decide.
We can either, as Dave indicated, he has presented some potential options. We can either discuss today, or just being cognizant of the time as well, we could bring it forward to a committee of the whole.
Given the time, I would suggest we do defer this to committee of the whole.
I think that's
I can make that
prudent.
motion if you like.
I don't know if we need to. We can. Yeah, then it's
I don't know if we
action.
need a motion. If we do, I'll make it a motion. If we don't, let's just defer it.
We should make it a motion, so.
Yeah, then it's
directing
action.
Administration to bring it back for future discussion.
So
Yeah,
I'll
perhaps
move-
accept as
sorry.
information, sorry, accept as information and ask administration to bring options back to committee of the whole.
So I'll move that this report be accepted as information and that administration place this item on the October 11th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda for resolution.
Perfect.
Discussion. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just for an update
Clear.
to council. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to 2.4.
Sorry, should we send a thank you letter for doing something like, or sorry to hear you go, or?
Sure. Do you want to put a motion on?
I don't really want to make the motion, but I just suggest we could.
For sending correspondence, we should motion it.
No, okay.
I'll put a motion on the floor that we send a letter thanking the operator for the years of operating under the previous lease agreement, and if administration could draft a letter from the Reeves office. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Good idea, thanks.
I couldn't word craft it that well, so.
We'll move to 2.416.
Good afternoon, council. Dave from administration. On page, I don't have to scroll out to 234. The report regarding the Glenrose Reservoir, which is located on the southeast quarter, section 28, 25, 23, west of the 4th. Administration had been receiving complaints about vehicles parking on the shoulder of Township Road 254 to access the reservoir for fishing. Administration did have some very preliminary discussions with WID staff and they support sports fishing as recreation on the reservoir, and we just had a real high-level discussion around the safety concerns on that reservoir. I provided a few options of different options to address the issues on the around the reservoir. The community is currently using it for a recreation area, and the best option to support its continued use is possibly exploring maybe some options with the WID and maybe a collaborative partnership or some agreement there. So to explore that option, Council prepared this report to ask Council to look at drafting a letter addressed to the Western Irrigation District to open discussions around a possible agreement and maybe some options around establishing a parking area around that reservoir. Some relevant policies are the Open Space Recreation Culture Master Plan has lack of amenities as the second most common reason as to why stakeholders do not participate in or use facilities or open space. So kind of supports that activity. And one of the top themes from the engagement was recreation and sports, family and youth friendly activities, which this would qualify as that kind of activity. So I can answer any questions around this report. Thank you.
Any questions?
I'll move that Council direct administration draft a letter addressed to the Western Irrigation District requesting to open discussions about a possible agreement to establish a public parking area at the Glenrose Reservoir located in southeast 28, 25, 23 west of the 4th Meridian.
Councillor Castro has a motion on the floor. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move to 2.417, RCMP quarterly updates, quarterly reports.
Good afternoon, Council. Matt from Administration. On page 239 of the agenda package is the RCMP quarterly reports for Bassano and Drumheller. You'll note in the report, Senior Officer Perman included the joint business plan implementation between Alberta RCMP and Alberta Justice and Solicitor General. The 6 priorities are included there that are noteworthy within the report. If there are any questions, I'll make note and get them back to Council. Thank you.
Any questions regarding the reports? If not, a motion to accept as information.
I'll move we accept the reports as information.
Councillor Larson has moved. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Move to 2.418.
Good afternoon, Bryce from Transportation and Agriculture. Today we're bringing forward a recommendation to enter into a license agreement with the Rosebud Gas Co-op to allow an antenna to be placed on the lift station in Muirfield. This antenna has been in place since we've taken over, since we've taken ownership of that lift station, and this is paperwork to put it in place properly and leave it there. The antenna is for them to help with their meter reads and information gathering for utilities in that area. Thank you.
Council's wishes.
I'll make the motion that Council approve administration to enter into a license agreement with Rosebud Gas Co-op for the Rosebud Gas Co-op to locate an antenna on the county's wastewater lift station in Muirfield in accordance with the license terms and other information presented in the license agreement for Rosebud Gas Co-op antenna at Muirfield report presented to Council August 16, 2022.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to 2.419.
Good afternoon, Council. This is an update report in regards to some discussion that's been going on with the county for some time in regards to surface rights. So I'll just read through the salient parts of the report. So on February 1st, 2022, Council provided direction to administration under Resolution 2022-0249 as follows: that Council direct administration to, based on the advice obtained from legal counsel, review and revise the original draft of the proposed ensuring landowners remained whole in contractual agreements with oil and gas companies resolution presented during the January 11th, 2022 regular council meeting, and to present to council at a future date the revised draft of the proposed resolution for review by council. So the legal advice that was obtained prior to that resolution, at least in part and in summary, some of the main general points, advise the county of the serious allegations, nature of some of the allegations or inferred allegations made within the original draft of the resolutions, to be mindful that if the county were to proceed with submitting resolutions to the RMA for consideration, that Wheatland County's name would be on the resolutions as the mover, in quotes, of the resolutions, and that if the county were to submit resolutions on this matter, the resolution should focus on policy positions, rather than the common was the original resolution was worded such that the county was kind of part of the agreements and such. So just kind of revise it in that manner. During the April 6th Wheatland County Agricultural Service Board's meeting, the ASB directed administration under Resolution 220411 as follows: that the board direct administration to explore the possibility and facilitate the scheduling of a meeting between the Wheatland County Agricultural Service Board, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, and the Explorers of Producers Association of Canada to discuss the concerns being raised by some landowners within Wheatland County pertaining to land surface leases under the Surface Rights Act. The meeting between the ASB, CAP, and EPAC was held on April 25th, 2022. Considering the information provided above and considering various meetings and discussions council and ASB members have had subsequent to these resolutions, administration is seeking further direction from council about how to proceed regarding this matter. So the recommendation from administration is just to for council to accept the report as presented, and then if council wants to provide any further direction to council to administration, and that's the end of the report.
Thank you. Councillor Larson.
Yeah. So I'll just provide an update, and Russ and George, if you guys need to chime in, go ahead. So, and it's not in our reports because most of these meetings happened in August. We did have the meeting with CAP and EPAC was very productive. They gave us some tips as for direction. That's been working fairly well. I've got the minutes from the Lynx meeting. Did that come through this time, Russ? Yes, it did. Okay. So I forwarded that to Russ. We'll distribute it when I'm still waiting for the minutes from the meeting with Amber Petroleum, which arguably went a lot better than it did with Lynx. And then with our discussions at the WARS AGM, there was Minister Savage, Cooper, Leela here,
Angela Pitt and Joseph Shaw.
Thank you. So there was quite a contingent of MLAs and ministers there, and a huge crowd. I would say, what, 2/3 of the Standard Community Hall?
Yeah, it
was at least
well
that many
attended.
people.
Very well attended.
Minister Savage got up and stated unequivocally that the government is on the side of the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society. So I think with the strides that they've made, they've done a great job of this, and they were the people that were asking us for a resolution in the first place. And Spencer called me on an unrelated thing yesterday, and I just thought I'd ask. So I asked him what he thought, and he said he's kind of in agreement with what I thought is, let's leave it. It's going so well now. Let's leave it with WARS. Let's not submit the resolution that we thought we might have to, because it could actually end up being counterproductive to the work that they're doing right now. There's a couple other things I'd like to say, but probably not in public, about some comments that were made there, but we can talk about that offline anytime. Russ, George, did I miss anything, or Shannon? So that's just to put it in context, because I know we talked about a resolution. I just don't think it's the right thing to do now. We've found a better way, so let's keep going with it.
it's funny, I've been talking to Spencer and to Sandra Desmet and other members of that group. And at that AGM, I did talk to Sonia Savage, Minister Savage, and she suggested that we should still develop a resolution, but discussing parts of the act that we thought could be helpful, made more helpful to a landowner. And I have come to realize, I didn't realize this, but the act was modified or amended like a year ago. And a year ago, it was much more helpful for a landowner, and it's changed to be less so. So it used to have wording about keeping a farmer whole, a landowner whole, where that doesn't say that anymore. It used to talk about the loss of use being calculated a certain way based on gross revenue from the land. And she also thought that we should be talking about the tribunal and the fact that they're not following the act, and that maybe that's another avenue that we should go down, talking about how the loss of use is a contractual agreement for a certain number of acres, and they're saying, well, we're not using that, but that doesn't matter. The contract is the contract, and that is a certain. So she thought we should still be going forward with some kind of resolution. There are other examples of how the tribunal doesn't appear to be following the act, and kind of making rules up as they go. It's a very odd thing. I also found out that the tribunal is under the authority of Minister McIver. It's under municipal affairs, which I didn't realize. So I don't know if it'd be worthwhile to revisit our discussion points that we were going to raise with Minister McIver at the RMA, if we wanted to add this in as something that we wanted to just discuss with him.
Okay, I'll add a couple things, because I know what you're saying, but also Minister Savage said at that meeting that I remember there was the one person that got up and made a whole bunch of accusations about the tribunal, and she said that's absolutely false.
No, yeah, and so I didn't talk about that in particular, because that's...
Yeah, I mean, I want to be careful about what we talk about that way, but, and if I remember right, he's been approached already to talk about the tribunal and has said no. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do anything, but I think our original resolution probably isn't what we need to do now. And we still need to, as Brad said, we still need to focus on, okay, so what's the policy we want to change here? Because that's our job. Our job is not to advocate for landowners. It's to advocate for policy change, that what the government's doing wrong. So if we can find something there, then I think that's within our purview.
Wholeheartedly agree. So the question, though, so Sandra was the last person I talked to. Sandra just met, and I asked her to bring me specific things that they would like to see changed in the act that would allow them to keep whole, to not have costs associated with having oil and gas.
Okay, and I would just ask that her response go to Russ or George or whoever, and I mean, certainly can copy us, but it should be put on the ASB agenda.
Okay. And that was the other question, whether RMA is the best vehicle for this, or if ASB is better. And honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, we've discussed that a few times as to which is the best place, but
I thought, did we land on ASB and then, or I don't.
I think we landed on both, didn't we?
Yeah, I think originally we said both, dependent on timing. Occasionally, advocacy points will come to ASB and to RMA, and we do joint advocacy and joint meetings once or twice a year. I don't know their deadline. RMA's deadline is September 7th, so we would need a resolution at our next council meeting. I did have multiple mayors and reeves, Brian was on the call as well, who have expressed that this is a continuing significant issue in their municipalities as well, and they felt strongly that they would have council support to second a resolution. I have actually had a couple of reeves just reach out and say like, can you please bring your resolution forward? This continues to be a significant issue. Through other conversation with Minister Savage as well, she has as well committed to address the issue alongside the unpaid oil and gas tax. But I know that like the more advocacy that she has from a grassroots, whether it's from municipalities or from the surface rights group or from ASBs, as well for municipal affairs with regard to the tribunal, I think that just strengthens like the more avenues that advocacy comes through, the better. Typically, obviously being careful that there's no sort of counterproductive.
That would be my concern. I would hate to see us put something forward that negates all the work that the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society has done, because I know they've been in direct contact with Minister Savage, who said, send us this information, send us this information. I want to make sure we don't circumvent that. Perhaps we could consider, sorry, asking Councillor Laurison and Councillor Laprise with administration to meet with the surface rights group and just see if we can identify some sort of explicit policy requests that we might be able to bring forward. RMA advocacy staff are available as well to help draft a resolution. I know we have some administrative experience, especially through our agriculture department, in drafting resolutions historically that might be able to be drawn on, recognizing we have a relatively tight timeline. Councillor Laurison. So, and I'll put this to Russ primarily and George. Should we then call a special ASB meeting and then invite Spencer and company to come and tell us what we can do so that we can, do some effective thinking about this, or do we meet with them first and then think about calling a special meeting, just given the tight timeline that we have?
Afternoon, Council. Through the review, I think I would suggest meeting with Wares prior to calling a special meeting. The timelines are tight, but it would be good to see with after the meetings that have been hosted if their thoughts have changed as far as the original resolutions. There was 2 resolutions that were put forward originally, so it'd be good to see if there was any thought or idea to change those prior to hosting a special meeting.
I would suggest let's jump on that, because those guys are going to be on Combine shortly and not want to talk to us.
Oh, they're already there. Yeah. But Spencer's very good at talking on the phone while he's combining. So, yes. Hands free.
Absolutely. Perhaps just a motion. I don't know even if administration can reach out and have that conversation with the chairs or the chair of wars.
I don't think that would be an issue at the direction of council, of course, yeah.
And then if necessary, now because we have ASB direction to explore this, I don't know that it would necessarily have to go through the ASB, but we could also bring it back to the ASB at, I believe, our October meeting if we also concurrently wanted to bring it to the provincial ASB. I don't know if it goes to district first and then to that process I'm not quite as clear on.
Yeah, it goes to a regional conference, which would be the same as the district for RMA. As you had mentioned, RMA deadline is September the 7th. We haven't got an agenda or date for the regional ASB conference, but it'll be similar timeline. I suspect it'll be about mid-September, where we need to send the resolution to a regional conference. So at that point, we would need to either call a special ASB meeting or just have approval at council to go to both conferences.
So perhaps a motion I'll move to request that administration liaison with the Wheatland and Area Surface Rights Society Board, WAARS Society, to explore the necessity or their preference for a resolution to be brought forward and to report back to council at our September 6th council meeting. Yeah, September 6th. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. We have correspondence starting on page 277. Don't know if there's anything anybody wants actioned.
I was going to suggest that just offline, not as a council, but Wheatland Crisis Society Harvest Gala. I think just individually we should buy a table and
I was thinking the same thing. That could be, I think, a really good way to show support. If I can send an email after and just see if one table will be enough, or if we want to bring partners or that type of thing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I fully agree. Don't know if anybody wanted to do anything with the Ukrainian Independence Day. H287. And there was also just a question to administration, the letter from Dallam Fire. Was that more just for information on page 288?
Yes, Councillor Larson provided it to us to put into the package for correspondence.
Perfect.
It'll probably be an upcoming request, though.
And will that go through the Fire Capital Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Just so that we're aware of it when it comes.
Perfect. Thank you.
That one's interesting to me because I've thought that for years about getting a big tanker. And
Well, and
rolling it
interesting,
from anywhere, but I didn't.
Albert Jensen has supplied one just like this at his own expense for decades. Because, like you said, in those big rural fires, whether it's none of those, water is the limiting factor, right? And this one would be made available to all the other associations when they need it, right?
And if anybody has any nominations for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal, I think Tom has.
Yeah, and I just want to know what the process is, because I would assume that we should have all of council's approval for this. I think I would like to make a nomination, but I'm not sure, number one, I'm not sure about the proposal. Number two, I don't want to make this nomination if everybody on council says, no, it's a really bad idea. And then I just need to know what the going forward point is.
So there's just an online form. Basically, it's contact information and describe the nominee's significant contribution to Alberta, your municipality, or your community. And I think it's on a first come, first serve basis. So I don't know.
Do I go ahead and do this and then beg for
What's council's wishes? I mean, I think any individual, like, would council be comfortable if, I don't know, do we need a vetting process? You could bring it back. Do you want to bring like a potential application, like what your write-up would be to the September 6th meeting, and then we could endorse, like anybody could bring that for nominees that we would like to bring forward for September 6th?
Sure, I'll do that.
And then anybody, if you have individuals in the county that you would like to put the name forward, just bring their name and like follow the link in that correspondence. There's the link to the online form. And then just sort of your rationale for the nomination, and then council could endorse on the 6th. Everybody comfortable with that?
You said there was a form?
If you click on that blue link on page 300, it'll take you to it. Any other questions or actions out of there? If not, a motion to accept his information. Councillor Eichert has moved to accept his information. All in favor? Motion is carried. Brings us to closed session. I'll move us into closed session. All in favor? Motion is carried. Let's give a minute to